Hello and welcome to the Lyric Lounge, where I review all the latest music for you. Today we are taking a look at Bon Jovi's brand new album, Forever, which released on Friday, taking through all the tracks and what I think of them. So let's get into it. Okay, to start off then with Legendary. This was, I think, a very good choice to open the album with. I think the way it gets straight into the sound of it all, I think works really well. John's vocals match the music really well as well. Especially you can hear that in the chorus most prominently, I think, where it all just comes together, create a really good sound. I think older fans will probably enjoy it. It's got similar taste to some of their previous work. And for that reason, I'm going to give it a 8 out of 10. It was a very solid opening track for me. Now, We Made It Look Easy. This is a interesting one. The chorus moves well for me, I think. It sounds good with John's vocals. However, there is limited background music, except for sort of the midpoint where the guitars come in. It's not stereotypical Bon Jovi, if you know what I mean by that. I think you've got to have a certain taste when listening to it to thoroughly get the most out of it, and for that reason I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. Not the best track, but also not the worst. Okay, Living Proof. Very Living on a Prayer-esque. You know, you've got that sort of very electronic sound at the right at the start. If you know what Living on a Prayer is, then you'll know what I mean by that. And it is very quick into the chorus. John's voice sounds good in like the no backing lyrics where it says "We are living proof," and the music is matched well to his vocal levels, and it's all in all very well put together and very well produced song. Better than We Made It Look Easy, and to be honest, I think it would have been a much better second song for the album. I think it was deserving of a single in the lead up to the album. However, I think it probably could have been before We Made It Look Easy in the track list. And for that reason, I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. Okay, Waves now then. Getting into the main part of the album now. Interesting guitar sounds at the start. It's got like a nice build-up, and however the tone of the vocals is slightly unexpected for what you think for when the music sounds like. The lyrics are very prominent, mainly at the start. I noticed that you could hear them very well and follow along with them well, and they sort of become intertwined with the music going into the first chorus. And as well as like the guitar builds up to a nice sound towards the end, it's sort of gradually building up and up and up towards the end where it comes to a nice sort of crescendo. And I gave that song a 6 out of 10. Okay, moving on to Seeds then. It was a nice sound at the start. I liked that sort of starts sound to it. However, the high pitch of the vocals doesn't match. I think if they lowered the vocals slightly, it would have sounded better, probably a lot better. And the lyrics were sort of very staccato. You'd have one lyric and then a pause and another lyric. There was no flow to it, really. You couldn't really follow along. As such, which is a shame, because I think if you did, the lyrics would have been a lot better. The backing vocals, however, they did work well, particularly in the chorus, and the drum and guitar instrumental, sort of halfway point, does sound great. However, I think there's just too much, not wrong, but too many downsides of this song to beat the positives, and for that reason I gave it a 5 out of 10. Not the best song on the album. Okay, Kiss the Bride next. It's a nice slow start, and it's a very different song to the one we've heard previously on this album. It's a nice break from the heavier nature of this album, and a very calming song. I think it's nice to sort of break up the monotony of the Bon Jovi sound as such, and I think it's interesting that they're sort of experimenting with these types of songs, where even though the core of this album is their usual, like, sort of heavy stuff. You've got Walls of Jericho, Legendary, for example, and those are sort of what you expect the album to be like, and Kiss the Bride is sort of like a turn in the other direction. as such, and it's very welcome. I enjoyed this song a lot. However, I think it does sound slightly out of place in this album. If it was put next to I Wrote Your Song, which I'll get onto in a bit, that it probably would have fit better. I think it's just too... It's too far away from similar songs, I think. Bit closer, and it would have made more sense. And for that, I gave it a 7 out of 10. Okay, The People's House. Very good sound at the start, and the lyrics flow very well. The backing sounds are nice and they match the lyrics well, and there's no gapping between the main body and the chorus. It's all flowing, which I think sounds really good. John's voice as well fits the sound, which again is very good for this song, and the lyrics I think are very memorable. You could listen to the song a couple of times and know the lyrics, and the outro as well to the song, loved it. It's really nice, and in general it's one of the better songs on this album, and for that I gave it a 8 out of 10. Okay, Walls of Jericho now, and straight into the song. It's straight from the back of People's House, straight into the lyrics in Walls of Jericho. It's loud from the off, which is what you typically expect for a Bon Jovi song. In my opinion, this was the best vocal performance on the album, and it sounds like it would be a very good song for live performances. I think played live, if John's vocals are up to it, would sound incredible. I think it's a newer fans version of Living on a Prayer, etc. You know what I'm talking about, they're really popular songs. I think for new fans who are just discovering Bon Jovi at this album release time, this is their song, and this is their version of our Living on a Prayer. It's not the same, but also at the same time it's not trying to be that as well. It's different, but in the sense that old Bon Jovi fans have Living on a Prayer, this is newer fans sort of version of that. They can say, oh, Walls of Jericho is mine. And the guitar solo sections sound amazing on this song. I generally don't think I can fault this song, but I just don't think there's enough variety to give it that like elusive 10. However, I do think this is the best song on the album. Not by much, but still there is a noticeable margin there, and for that I gave it a 9 out of 10. Very, very good. Okay, I Wrote Your Song now, similar to Kiss the Bride, and it focuses a lot on John's vocals, which do sound good in this song. It's a stark contrast to Walls of Jericho, and not the violence, but sort of the heaviness of Walls of Jericho into the nice calming of I Wrote Your Song is a huge contrast, and I think may throw a few people off. But it's also a very straightforward song. It's easy to follow the story behind the lyrics, but for that sense as well, it may not be the taste of some people. I think some people may have different opinions about it, and that's fine, that's music. But for me, this was a very solid song, and I gave it a 7 out of 10. Okay, moving on now to Living in Paradise. It takes a while to build up, I think, to the main part of the song, but the music does get stronger as you progress through the song. And in that sense, verse 1 and verse 2 are very different. The verse 1 is sort of laid back verse, and then verse 2 is where you're really getting into it. And it does sort of level off towards the middle of the song, and that just stays at that constant volume from then on, which I think does sound nice, but also, you probably would expect it to carry on increasing towards the end. And for that reason, I gave it a 7 out of 10. Okay, my first guitar now. There is a huge push on the vocals during the chorus. John really goes for it, and at some points it can sound good, but it's not really a heavy sound, but also not a soft sound either. It's a very sort of mid-point, and for that reason it's sort of getting lost in the album. You've got these softer songs, I Wrote Your Song and Kiss the Bride, then you've also got Walls of Jericho and Legendary, which are very, very sort of heavier songs, and I said here it's in the middle of those two. Walls of Jericho and I Wrote Your Song and it does get lost. And I think the chorus is also extremely repetitive. And it's just, in general, I think it could have been a lot better, I think. And for that, I gave it a 4 out of 10. Not a great song. Okay, the final song on this album then, Hollow Man. It's an interesting sound for the introduction before it builds into the main of the guitar sounds, and the first verse is soft, lyrically wise, which then leads into a softer chorus with a gradual build-up throughout the song. I think it's a very good choice to end the album on. I think it sounds great as the closing song to an album, and could be something you see them perform at the end of a live show. I think it does that job of being the last in the album very well. I think if you ended on My First Guitar, you would have this sense of it being a very sort of rough end. You don't want that. You want a good song to end the album, and I think Hollow Man does this well, and for that I gave it a 7 out of 10. Okay, final verdict then. It's an interesting album. Obviously, John's vocals have been on a huge journey. He had to have surgery on them. And it's sort of, it's no Slippery When Wet, it's no New Jersey, but at the same time, they're not trying to be that anymore. I think the band themselves have moved on. And for where they are now, it is a very good album. I think it's better than 2020, which was sort of a bit of a rough patch. But no, it is a good album. I think there are songs that could be improved by a bit, but they're not really letting the side down as such. There are multiple really good songs on this album that are, really, that stick out, and I believe those can become slightly more popular. So yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed this album, and for that reason I gave the entire album a solid 7 out of 10. And yeah, that's it. So if you did enjoy this, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn those post notifications. I will try and get a midweek video out for probably Brat by Charlie XCX. But apart from that, that's it from me, from the Lyric Lounge. I hope you enjoyed this review. Go and listen to it yourself. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.